All right, welcome back, class. We're going to be looking at some of the different outline types that we can use for your various speech types. Now that you've had a chance to brainstorm just a little bit, maybe you've got an idea of what direction you want to take this in. Let's start figuring out how you want to write it out. Now, there are some outline types that are specific to persuasive speeches that I would like for you to please pick from one of these different varieties. So first off, we've got the basic problem solution outline. It's a good tried and true one. So first part is, as usual, intro. I always like throwing in background whenever I'm writing a speech. Most of the time it doesn't survive to the end, but just in case there's context that needs to be offered. Next spot we've got is problem, right? And then we've got solution, and then we've got conclusion, and that's the entire speech. Now here's the trick to a problem solution speech. In the problem section, all the way up before the solution, at no time should you give any hint at all that there is a solution to the problem, okay? You do not want to give people room to breathe. You state the problem in extreme terms, right? The best way that you can go about making sure that people realize that this is a relevant problem is talk about how it impacts the people who are worst impacted. You want to talk about humans. Talk about how it impacts the community, and then most importantly, talk about how it impacts the people who are listening to you. Okay? With the solution, I tend to be very direct with it, and I say, but there is a solution. That's my normal turning point for this sort of speech. So once you've got people just desperate because of the severity of the problem, then you tell them, but there is a solution. Then describe the solution, and talk about how it addresses the problem for the people worst impacted, for the community, for those who are listening. So now you take away all of the problems that you brought up in the first part, right? All of the suffering that you have identified, you now relieve in the solution section. You want to make sure that you get all of it, okay? Before you move on. And then it's the typical other stuff, right? Like, you already know that, like, for example, with intros, you need a hook, and you need to preview the problem. Don't preview the solution, obviously. Then with back, you already know like the little bits that we've talked about already concerning like intros and conclusions. So this is a problem solution outline. Now, next, I want to show you, it's a slight adaptation on this. It's called the problem solution action outline. It's exactly the same as all of this with just a couple of tweaks. First off, you add one more part. This is called action. And here is what you need to do, what the audience needs to do in order to make this real, in order to make the solution work, okay? And you're just going to give steps of implementation, and you'll have to do one last little bit of work here. You're going to have to convince the audience that the sacrifice/effort that they make is worth it to attain the solution. There you go. Now, there is one little change here that I will make. So I still stand by this. You should not tell them what the solution is. You should not give them any hints, except that at the end of the introduction section here, when I have problem, solution, action, there's a big mental hump that people have to get over when they're actually like getting ready to do something. Like us actually having to act takes some prep. We don't like to do things. We like to do nothing. And so I usually will end at the introduction section by saying, I'll preview the problem. I'll talk about how serious it is. And then I'll say, We'll be talking about this problem and what you can do to prevent or fix it, right? Something along those lines. I'll let them know that at the end of the speech, I'm going to want something from them. So that's basic problem solution action. You actually, if you go to chapel and that sort of thing, you actually hear at least the problem solution outline quite a lot, because you might notice, check this out, if I get rid of the action section here, I can take this and I can go law, and I can go here and go gospel, and now you've got what we would call in ministry a basic law gospel outline, right? With the law, we have a problem. We were supposed to do good things. We didn't do those good things, and now we're in trouble. But with the gospel, we've got a solution to that problem, right? We weren't good, so Jesus was good on our behalf, right? So the basic problem solution outline is also, functionally very, very, very similar to a pastor's most basic outline, law gospel outline. Okay, so that is the problem solution outline and the problem solution action outline. Let's take a look at another one. This one is called the policy outline. It's actually got some other names, but I like to call it the policy outline because I use it in conjunction with all of my policy speeches. So you'll start off as usual with an introduction, and with the introduction, and I should be very clear about this policy outline. So this policy outline is following a format that that's most often referred to as Monroe's motivated sequence. Okay, so if you forget about this, you can always just Google Monroe's motivated sequence. It'll take you right to the broad ideas behind this speech type. So you start off with the intro. You're gonna start off by grabbing attention, right? I'm using that phrasing because that's specifically what Monroe's motivated sequence says, right? Maybe grab attention, right? We would call it the hook, and it's functionally identical. Now, the next section is going to be define the problem, okay? You want to make sure that the parameters of this thing are really well known. In order to do that, one of the bits you're going to want to do is visualize the world with the problem. Now, for this portion, you want to be specific, but you don't want to be like over the top. You don't want to make it sound like, because we've got a litter problem at Bethany, that the world is a barren hellscape or something like that, right? Like you want to define the problem, you want to visualize the problem in like a reasonable way. The world looks messier because of this problem, or this is the areas in which this thing causes a problem. And then talk about why that's a problem. Just like before, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to visualize, or you're going to describe how the problem affects others. Describe how the problem affects the community. Describe how the problem affects the audience. Okay, there we go. Once you've defined the problem, you are going to then satisfy the problem, right? Sometimes you can go with define the need, right? And then satisfy the need. That also works, right? And so now you're going to talk. Once again, this is kind of that same bit where you go, but there is a solution, right? So now you offer a definition of the solution. Describe how it resolves the problems, just like before. Your next section is going to be visualize the solution. Describe a world in which the solution has been implemented. Okay? And then finally, your final step here is call to action. The call to action is where you tell people what it is that they need to do in order to make this a reality. Okay? So it works, on a mental level, This works a lot like what we were describing up above, okay? You are making people feel desperate for some sort of a solution to the problem. You want them to feel like the problem is so serious and severe that they have to do something. And then you tell them that indeed there is something that can be done. You tell them about how much better the world looks once this solution has been implemented and how it fixes the problems for the groups who are affected. And then finally, what it is they need to do in order to make this thing actually happen, right? And by that point, they'll be so relieved and grateful that there's something that can be done that they will be very motivated to do it. The real tricky part of the policy outline of Monroe's motivated sequence is give them the ability to do something right away. This goes towards consistency. It goes towards foot in the door. If you want to know more about some of these processes of persuasion, more than happy to talk about them. Take some upper level classes. Definitely take them in person, not online, because it's much more fun when we actually get to mess with each other's heads and see how brains change when certain messages are applied. But to make a long story short with it, human beings are very motivated to behave in consistent ways. And so give them a way in which they can begin to satisfy their need to address this problem.